Hey there, my name is Mary. I'm a 24-year-old woman who recently got married to the love of my life, Asha. Get ready for an absolutely crazy revenge story from my wedding day. This tale revolves around my mother-in-law, Mildred, who tried to turn my special day into a chaotic nightmare. Let's begin with how Asha and I met. We met at a college event where Asha was performing a song with his band. I heard him sing, and I was immediately drawn to him. I managed to get a hold of him, and from our first conversation, we knew we wanted to go out. We started hanging out more and getting to know each other. Before we knew it, 3 years had passed, and we decided to get married. One thing you should know is that while Asha and I have enjoyed a blissful relationship, Asha's mother, Mildred, absolutely hated me from the moment I entered her son's life. Mildred treated me with disdain. She was an overbearing and controlling force, determined to assert her dominance and make my life a living hell. For example, I had once invited both Asha's and my family to our then-new apartment for a celebration dinner. I cooked all the meals while Asha cleaned and decorated the house. While everyone else enjoyed it and congratulated us, Mildred took it upon herself to constantly make snide remarks about me. She complained about the food, the clothes I was wearing, and the cleanliness of the apartment. Anything she could complain about, she did. Nobody said anything and chose to ignore her instead. Every once in a while, Asha's dad, Matt, would ask her to stop. I chose to ignore her too. Eventually, Asha snapped at her. Honestly, this has not been that good of a dinner. If it were up to me, I would have done so much more for Asha. I mean, it's his first apartment. It definitely should deserve a better and bigger celebration. Enough, Mom. Sure, but no more buts. You've been nothing but rude today. Mary worked hard on today's dinner, and I think she deserves some appreciation at the very least. Oh, but darling, I was just saying that. Please stop talking. I would like you to apologize to Mary for your rude behavior. Fine, whatever. Sorry. It's okay, I guess. And if you must know, Mom, this apartment is in both of our names. Mary didn't work on this dinner alone. I cleaned and decorated this house, so thank you for letting me know how I did my job. Oh no, I'm so sorry, darling. I didn't. Save it, Mom. I guess that incident was an eye-opener for my mother-in-law because after that, she stopped insulting me as much as she used to. She would instead just remain silent every time I was around. Honestly, I loved it. Every time she insulted me, I would try to brush it off, but it actually hurt. Plus, it took every ounce of self-control to not retort and say something meaner back to her. Her silence provided me with much-needed peace of mind. After Asha proposed to me, which, by the way, was the perfect proposal by the beach, Mildred's resentment towards me only grew larger. While she remained silent around me, her aggression towards me came out in her actions. Mildred would deliberately do things to physically hurt me. One time, she accidentally dropped scalding hot tea onto my lap, and another time, she accidentally pushed me down the stairs when I was wearing heels. I didn't do anything because I didn't want to start anything more with Mildred. To try and make amends and possibly have a better relationship, I decided to give her one last chance. I let her help with certain parts of the wedding planning. One of the things I was most excited about was choosing my wedding gown. Of course, my bridesmaids were all invited, and I also invited Mildred. While everything went relatively smoothly at the start, Mildred began getting agitated when no attention was being paid to her. She began causing a ruckus at the store. She complained loudly about the lack of choices, the subpar service, and critiqued all my choices whenever I tried on a dress. While all my bridesmaids howled at me and rated my choices out of 10 while sitting in their chairs, Mildred would come over and begin pinching the fabric, pinching me in the process. She carried her own bunch of safety pins so she could see if the dress I liked needed altering. She would constantly use the pretext of altering the dress as an excuse to poke me with the pins. She argued with the cashier when she found out the starting prices of the dresses and tried to haggle with her. Keep in mind, Asha and I had more than enough to buy the store's most expensive dress. Mildred knew this too. She just wanted all eyes on her, and boy, did she get it. Eventually, the manager of the store came to the floor and asked Mildred to leave. Mildred left, but not without screaming how the store was trash, and the whole event was a huge waste of her time. After that experience, I'd had it. I had been poked, prodded, and humiliated all on the same day. I confided in Asha after that experience. It was a disaster today, baby. What happened, darling? Well, in the shortest way possible, your mother humiliated me. It's only a miracle that she wasn't there the whole time. Not there? Where'd she go? She got escorted out, so you can imagine how she must have behaved to get thrown out. Oh God, are you okay though? Well, Mildred poked me with safety pins on multiple occasions, called all of my choices hideous, and tried to haggle with the store clerk when she heard the prices of the dresses. Oh my God, I'm so sorry, baby. What do you want to do about this? I'll be okay with anything you suggest. Honestly, I don't want her help with the wedding. I know she's your mother, but she's a hazard to me. It'll be a miracle if I attend our wedding with only a couple of scratches. Yes, of course, honey. This is as much your wedding as it is mine. If you're not okay with something, I can't force it on you. I'll text Mom and tell her. You go take a bath and relax now. Thank you so much, darling. Asha and I decided to minimize contact with her to prevent any more injuries for me. I know you're thinking it, and yes, we did confront her about her behavior on several occasions. She only responded in one of two ways, either with nonchalance or loud sobbing while victimizing herself. Both were too hard to deal with, so we simply cut her off until the wedding. Being completely cut off from the wedding planning only made things worse. Mildred kept trying to start arguments with Asha and me over text, but my father-in-law, Matt, handled it. He was on our side and told us not to worry about Mildred and asked us to focus on the wedding. The relief I felt thanks to Matt allowed me to put my heart and soul into planning my wedding. I meticulously planned every aspect of my dream wedding. Everything from the venue to the color of the table napkins was well thought out. I wanted our wedding to be a reflection of Asha and me and our relationship. I invited everyone important to us, and even ensured a wide variety of foods to cater to everyone's needs. After months of intense planning, I had completely forgotten about Mildred. However, at my bachelorette party, my best friend and maid of honor, Amelia, brought her up in conversation. Do you think Mildred will do something at your wedding? Nonsense. I don't think she will. I'm not saying she will, but think about it. You and Asha excluded her from helping plan the wedding. True, but I still doubt that. That would draw way too much attention to her. Come on, Mary. You know Mildred loves having all the attention on her, and you know she'll want all the attention on your special day more than anything. I don't know. You can't seriously be struggling to grasp this possibility. She has never stopped trying to ruin your day and efforts. What makes you think she wouldn't want to ruin one of the biggest days of your life? Okay, fine. What do you propose I do? Since we aren't entirely sure Mildred would try something, let's just prepare for it. We'll come up with a plan and only execute it if Mildred does try to ruin your day. If she wants attention, we'll give it to her. We'll have everyone's eyes on her and watch her entire reputation unravel. Isn't that a bit too much? A bit too much has Mildred thinking she can ruin your day. Just follow my lead. Okay then, I'll leave this in your hands. Eventually, the day finally arrived. The day was frantic, but everything felt worth it as I walked down the aisle. I couldn't help but feel a surge of excitement and nervousness. Seeing Asha at the end of the aisle, tearing up while smiling wide, made me feel overjoyed. All I could think of was how I couldn't wait to spend the rest of my life with Asha. Everyone was either smiling big or crying, and the entire atmosphere seemed to be bursting with happiness. Everything felt right, and I felt like all my months of hard work had finally paid off. However, my happiness would soon be short-lived, because little did I know that Mildred had different plans of her own. Mildred's real colors began to show as the ceremony began. She sat in the first row, huffing and puffing, apparently angry about not being the center of attention. Even the most joyful person would tremble at her scowl. I wish it had stopped there, but it did not. Mildred began openly muttering her disapproval as the officiant began to speak. She made sarcastic remarks about the decorations, the seating, the choice of vows, and the ceremony itself. Her passive-aggressive remarks echoed throughout the hall, making our guests uncomfortable. Some gave her glares, while others let out a couple of coughs to drown out her negativity. When the time came for Asha and me to exchange rings, Mildred scoffed audibly and rolled her eyes as if the whole affair was beneath her. Her blatant lack of support and enthusiasm for our union was on full display, ruining the sacredness of the moment. For the most part, Asha and I ignored it. On the ride to the reception hall, Asha and I talked about the whole ordeal. "Oh my God, what is wrong with her?" I exclaimed. "I know, right? I can't believe the nerve she has. I'm going to have a good word with her. Don't hold me back," Asha replied. "Oh, believe me, I won't. You might have to hold me back." "Okay, you know what? We still have our plan. Let's go full throttle. Mom wants attention? Fine, we'll put the spotlight on her." "Yes. Should I give Amelia the green signal?" "Absolutely. I don't think anyone can put her in her place. I think it's time for her to see herself through everyone else's eyes." "Finally, I hope this will make things better for us. We deserve better than this." "Yes, my dear. If it doesn't work, we'll completely cut her off. We'll start fresh." "I can't wait." We reached the venue hall feeling better and more than ready to celebrate our marriage. As the reception started and guests filled in, the music got louder and the drinks started flowing. Asha and I took to the dance floor for our first dance, then called on our friends and family to join us. Laughter and joy rang through the hall. Asha and I were overjoyed. However, Mildred wasn't done yet. She had more in store for us. Unbeknownst to Asha and me, she made it a point to complain about every little detail, from the flowers to the table settings, to whoever she was standing next to. She would walk up to random guests and voice her displeasure loudly. Realizing that no one was paying attention to her, Mildred decided to try and sabotage me. During the cake-cutting ceremony, she tried to, accidentally, push me into our cake. Thankfully, Asha was there to save me and the cake. When that didn't work out, Mildred decided to accidentally trip and spill her drink on me. However, she ended up spilling her drink on herself. Not being able to sabotage me only made her angrier. Her pièce de résistance was holding up a blown-out candle to a smoke detector to cause an alarm, and an alarm it caused. Everyone panicked, but Asha managed to get security to check. They gave us the green signal and told us to carry on. When tiredness began to set in, Asha and I decided it was time to sit down and make a toast. We toasted our relationship, while many of our loved ones made several speeches too. Mildred decided to ignore everyone's heartfelt words, thinking she did not receive enough attention. In a truly cringe-worthy moment, Mildred grabbed the microphone and began to ramble on about her achievements and how she had always been the guiding force in her son's life. The room fell silent, and a sense of embarrassment washed over the crowd as they exchanged awkward glances. The atmosphere of the room did not affect Mildred. She kept going on without a care, happy that all eyes were finally on her. Asher and I exchanged uncomfortable glances with each other. When we'd heard enough of Mildred's speech, I looked at Amelia and nodded my head, signaling to put the plan in motion. I had enlisted the help of my most trusted friends, and together we had come up with a plan to put Mildred in her place. I knew that her microaggressions towards me during the wedding planning would come to a head on the day of the wedding. So Amelia and I shared our plans with the bridesmaids and best men. The plan began with all the bridesmaids, groomsmen, and waitstaff wearing pinned-on cameras. We wanted to make sure that every one of Mildred's actions and words was caught. As the reception started, we subtly goaded Mildred to talk. The bridesmaids and groomsmen engaged Mildred in seemingly innocent conversations. They acted so well that Mildred began spilling all her feelings to them. She kept talking smack about me and the wedding. She also eventually began talking about how she wished she could do something to stop the wedding. To add fuel to the fire, we strategically positioned our waitstaff, who had been briefed on our plan. They ensured that Mildred received subpar service, from spilled drinks to incorrect orders, making her feel increasingly uncomfortable and frustrated. This further prompted her to talk more smack about the wedding. She was also intentionally rude to the waitstaff, never holding back the opportunity to cuss at them. Fortunately, one of the waitstaff heard her plan to sabotage me by spilling her drink on me, so they accidentally tripped her, leading to her spilling her drink on herself. We caught all of this on our cameras. As the guests' tiredness began to settle in, everyone wearing a camera secretly took out their SD cards with the footage and handed them to our best man, who worked in videography. He quickly compiled all the footage and handed our maid of honor, Amelia, the USB. Now, as soon as Mildred had all eyes on her, we were ready to execute our carefully crafted revenge plan. It was time to show Mildred that her actions had consequences, and that she would pay for ruining my special day. The lights dimmed as the screen fell and a video got projected onto the screen. Lo and behold, it was Mildred talking smack about me during the wedding. The video was a compilation of her rude comments and behavior, including her setting off the smoke alarm. Everyone sat shell-shocked in their seats, unable to believe the lengths Mildred would go to ruin her own son's wedding. By the end of the video, almost everyone was glaring daggers at Mildred. The few who weren't wore expressions of disgust. Mildred, on the other hand, was flabbergasted. Before she could say anything, my best friend and maid of honor, Amelia, grabbed the mic. With a glint of mischief in her eyes, she began recounting embarrassing stories about Mildred, much to the amusement of the crowd. She did it in a comedy stand-up roast session manner. The room erupted in laughter at Mildred's expense, leaving her humiliated and exposed. Mildred jumped up from her seat, her face red with anger. She tried to yell out her response in retaliation, so Amelia further engaged her in front of the crowd. "None of that is true. Stop it right this second," Mildred shouted. "Look, if I asked anyone around this room to recount a bad experience they had, all of them would answer with, 'That one time I hung out with Mildred,'" Amelia retorted. "Why are you being so mean?" "Mean? Me, Mildred. If I'm being mean right now, you've been monstrous this whole time." "Oh, wait. Yeah, that checks out. I'm being mean, but at least I'm not being you." "That's not okay. Why is no one stopping her?" "Oh, honey, if everyone can tolerate you, what makes you think they won't tolerate me? I'm being an angel right now compared to you." "Asha, say something. This woman is humiliating your mother." "Humiliating you? No, she's just poking fun at you. It's all in good nature, and everyone seems to be enjoying this." "Asha, sorry, Mum, but anything to entertain guests. Am I right?" "That's Mildred's motto right there. Well, she may not have said it, but she's always demonstrated it through Mary. Guess it sucks when it comes back to bite you, huh, Mildred? That is the biggest lie I've ever heard." "No, the biggest lie you ever heard is nice to meet you." "That's enough. I don't know why I expected any better from this wedding. You're a mean and disrespectful woman." Seeing Amelia destroying Mildred, I motioned to the DJ to turn up the volume. I made sure to signal the DJ in the middle of Mildred's point, leaving her even angrier. The best part of the whole ordeal was watching Mildred's face turn redder with every point thrown at her. As Mildred stood there fuming and unheard, the crowd decided to get back onto the dance floor. Everyone except for Mildred joined in the joyous celebration, leaving her all alone. It was a moment of triumph, a taste of her own medicine. Years of being sidelined and mistreated by Mildred finally paid off. I could finally make Mildred see how she had been treating me. Unable to bear the humiliation and lack of attention, Mildred left. The rest of the night was a celebration of love and unity. We were free from Mildred's toxic presence. The reception was filled with laughter, joy, and a renewed sense of friendship and love. Our revenge had succeeded, reminding Mildred and everyone present that actions have consequences and that it's important to treat everyone with kindness.
All right, everyone's presentations are done, Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick? Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my second year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, I'm thirsty. Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children. With zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job. Having joined the company wanting to do customer service. I don't care what they say, I plan to quit anytime, he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance. As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them. It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. All right, everyone's presentations are done. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me. There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. Still here? Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. I'm leaving. I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick! What's wrong? Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, get his boss here immediately. It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I obediently followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was, as the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize. Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. What kind of training are you giving your subordinates? Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed. I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry. Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong. Mike, what have you done? Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. I didn't do anything wrong. You're still saying that? Look at him. Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract? Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go. Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him. There's no way he was pushed aside. Don't make things worse here. He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he? I don't remember that part. I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you've failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.